right. Erica, did you make it to where they can't use chat? Yeah.
Yes.
All right, perfect. And then sometimes I've noticed that some of the committee members end up over on the attendee side. So just make sure if we're missing anybody, they're not over there. I'm going to bring them over. All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to our second IRC meeting. We've got a little bit to get through today, so we're going to go ahead and get started. A couple things, just make sure that the committee members, when it's, hopefully you will keep your cameras on so that we can just make sure we have as much of a in-person feel as possible so that everybody can see your smiling face. And then right now, real quick, while I have you all on here, both the committee and the attendees, we're going to test the raise your hand feature so that we can, because that's how we'll do a lot of the votes. So if you can raise your hand so that we can just make sure that that's all working. I see 1, 2, 3, 4. I see 5 hands raised. Let's see. Oh, Glenn. Okay. Can you raise your hand, Glenn? All right. Thanks. And then I will lower your, well, maybe somehow. I got to remember how to do this too to lower everybody's hand. Oh, I think it's click on my own name. No. How do I lower them all? There's a way. Don't lower your hands because there's a
on the participants, there's the ... Shauna, and there's the option to lower all hands.
There is a ... and an option
next to mute all.
Oh, way down here on this ... Okay, there we go. Look at that. All right. And so I just wanted to make sure that we get that working. So it looks like that's working really well. Perfect. And we'll just keep everybody muted unless it's time to speak so that we can not step on each other's toes throughout the process. If for those of you who are new to the process, we really are, we have this down to where we'll bring a proposal to the floor, and the person that created the proposal or their representative will present it. Then we'll go out to the public for any comments or questions in support, and then we'll look for any opposition from the public. Then we'll bring it back to the committee for questions of the proponent or questions of the public. And then we'll take it back to the public for rebuttal. You can rebut something that you heard being said by the committee. And then we'll go back to the committee for a motion and a vote. So it's the Robert's Rule of Order. The public will have 2 minutes to speak. There'll be a little timer, so you'll see this timer. When it's your turn to speak, you'll have 2 minutes to speak in support or opposition, and then you'll have 1 minute only on rebuttal, so that we can kind of try to stay on task with this, because some of these proposals get a little contentious. No, I know it does. We'll take a break about halfway through and take, it depends on how far along we are in our agenda, whether we take 5 or 10 minutes, but we'll take about 3:30 or so, try to take a little break to just let everybody get up and stretch. We'll have the proposals on the screen. We have the code and Denver's amendments and stuff. So hopefully we have everything that you need in order to view the proposals and make some decisions. So with that, Erica, do we have a quorum?
We do. We have 6 committee members in attendance.
We have 6 committee members in attendance, and we have 9 normally, so we needed 5 for a quorum, so we have it. When it comes to voting, have a unanimous vote with 6, we'll need 4, right? So we would need 4 to have a unanimous vote on any proposals. All right, with that, I will ask the proponents and anybody testifying to please tell us your name and who you're representing. There are sometimes you're representing somebody different on different proposals. So if you're city staff and you're representing yourself, let us know. If you're city staff and you're representing city staff, let us know so that it can be on record of who you're representing. So with that, I think we're ready to get started. Erica, anything else that you want to include?
The only other thing is really, if you can, keep your camera on. If you have to run the restroom or take a quick call, that's totally fine. You can turn off your camera, but for the most part, we would like to promote committee members to keep their cameras on.
Perfect. All right, well, with that, the first item on the agenda is item number P 24.6, which is for the IRC's section 702.7. The proponent for that is Robbie Schwartz. So we will bring Robbie over. Are we just making him allowed to talk or actually bringing him over as a panelist?
I
Everybody's
think
doing it differently.
allowed to talk is
Okay.
easy.
Okay. All right. Oops. Did I do that? Robbie?
Hi, I'm
Go
here.
ahead. Okay, perfect. Go ahead, Robbie.
Hi, this is Robbie Schwartz with Bill Tank Inc. Thank you for the opportunity to bring this proposal back with modification. And I don't think that the modification is showing.
This is what I downloaded off of Denver's website. Is there a modification that you sent me or to Erica?
I sent it to, I forget. I believe I sent it to you and Erica.
All right, let
I
me
don't
just,
remember for sure.
let me see if I can find it real quick. Sorry.
I can share my screen in the short term if you'd like me to.
Okay, let me see.
And I got it off the Denver IRC site.
Oh, you did? Huh, because I downloaded these just like last Thursday.
There might have been some changes in between then, Shauna.
Okay. All right, well, maybe I'll just real quick. This is to be a good lesson in how to find those proposals on Denver's website, right? So here you go. City. Well, it would if I could type correctly. There we go. I had it, a quick link on there. All right, so all of them are on here. They're in the IRC. And this is for 702.
I took it from the agenda.
It should be the same link.
Could be the same. Oh, there it is. Yep, that's it.
This is it? Okay. All right. Sorry about that.
Great.
Okay,
Perfect.
so here's the proposal amendment.
Okay, so thank you again. This is Robbie Schwartz at Bill Tank Inc. Thanks again for the opportunity to bring this proposal back. Nate and myself have met and listened to what the committee's questions and concerns were. And what it came down to is that vapor transport occurs via vapor diffusion through the wall that the vapor retarder is trying to manage, and also through air leakage into the wall. We're really fortunate in Colorado that that we live in a forgiving climate, and that vapor diffusion is a small process of the vapor transport mechanism. And we're required to build our houses to at least 3 air changes per hour. So we're basically addressing the issue of vapor transport into our wall assemblies via air leakage into those assemblies. So Nate and I have amended this proposal in 2 ways. First, we realized that we were using the wrong version of the code. And so we put in the correct version of the code for the baseline, which is the 2021 IRC. And then we took out tables R 702.7 and 702.74 and 3, which are the tables that give you an explanation of when and how you can use a class 3 vapor retarder. And instead of that, in table 702.7 parentheses 2, we put that class 3 vapor retarders are permitted. Therefore, a builder has a choice in our climate zone of using either a class 1, 2, or 3 vapor retarder in their home. And because we don't have a lot of moisture in our wall assemblies in the first place, and because we haven't seen issues with dew point condensation issues that would require foam exterior insulation, and because vented claddings can happen in other ways than described by those tables, we believe that this proposal allowing class 3 vapor retarders best represents what builders and the code jurisdiction of Denver should be promoting for houses in our climate zone.
Thank you, Robbie. It's just moderating too many hearings, I think. I forgot that you guys, we had introduced this last time, and there were some questions, and you guys agreed to work on it and bring it back. It's all coming back to me. So one thing that I would note is in this table 70271, this is class 1, class 2, and this should be class 3, I'm
Yes.
guessing. So, but other than that, all right. So this was something that got discussed last time. We asked them to modify it and bring it back, and so they did. So now we're going to go to the public. Thank you, and ask if there is any testimony in support of this proposal. For some reason, oh, there we go. Any testimony in support? Nathan. Oops. There we go. Nathan.
Yeah, so yep, this is Nathan Scribdo with Brookfield Properties. Yeah, and like Robbie was saying, work with him on modifying this, and just like Robbie was saying, it helps basically set the code up for our climate zone so that we are adjusting it to our climate zone, what we see here in Denver, and not trying to use just the generic class or climate zone 5 that you'd see in the normal IRC, and bring it in 5B and allowing the vapor barrier to be used on the inside without any additional construction materials being added and brought in, I think makes the most sense. So thanks.
Excellent. Thank you for working on that together. Okay, any other testimony in support of this proposal? Any testimony in support? All right, any testimony in opposition of this proposal from the public? Any testimony in opposition? One more time for opposition? No? All right, let's go back to the committee. Committee, let's, do you have any questions? Let's keep it to questions right now. Any questions of the proponents? Any questions of Robbie or Nathan? All right, seeing none, we're not going to go back to rebuttal because there wasn't anything to rebut. So committee, we'll bring it to you for a motion and further discussion. Yep, a motion and discussion. There we go, Kate.
I make a motion to approve this code revision.
Okay, so approval as modified?
Yes, sorry.
No, that's fine. Approval is modified as what's shown on the screen right now, and that is on the Denver's website. Is there a second for that motion? Austin? Okay. All right, any discussion? Anybody want to discuss anything? It doesn't look like it. All right, then we're going to call for the vote. So all of those committee members in favor of this proposal as modified by what you see on the screen, please raise your hand. I see 5. All right. 5-4. And all those against? Anybody against? All right. All those abstaining? Robert. Okay, so 1 abstention. So that is 5 in favor of as modified, 0 against, and 1 abstention. So that passes. We only needed 4 for a majority. All right, thank you very much, Robbie and Sneak. I'm going to get rid of that one right now. All right. So then that brings us to item number 18, which is IRC 3021. I believe this is the right. No, that's not the right proposal. Well, I had these all in order at one time. At least I thought it. All right. Is this one? It says 3021, but this is what's coming up under 18. Is this not number? This is not. This is 13. I don't know why this is happening. All right, I'm going to get rid of all of them.
Shauna, I think there's a typo error on that. There, you notice the first part said R403.1 general.
Yeah.
That should not be there.
Okay, because I'm like, wait a minute. It
Yeah,
says
once you
on
get
the
past, keep
agenda-
scrolling. I apologize. That I'm not sure. That just must be some.
Okay.
I don't
right.
know. Yeah,
bummer.
for the committee, you can just strike that. That is not meant to be part of this proposal.
Okay, all right. So I looked at that and I was like, uh-oh, I have the wrong proposal. up
Yeah,
here.
that's why
It
what
is-
I realized was happening. So that's why I spoke up.
All right, thank you so much. All right, so this is R3021 for exterior walls. All right, so the proponent was Michaela. I believe Michaela is out, but somebody else is presenting. So go ahead. I think Austin, maybe? Or who's presenting?
I believe it's Casey.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Casey Vesk, plan reviewer for City County Denver. I'm representing Michaela, who wrote this, who is representing the city.
Thank you.
I think I got that right.
Yep, perfect.
So on this one, this is about the fire separation distance and basically adding the projections, external gutters and storm drainage systems that extend on the exception number 3 and adding exception number 7 for external gutters and other storm drainage systems are not considered projections. The purpose of this is to reduce the misunderstanding of the public regarding how to measure fire separation distance for projections when external gutters are installed. This is basically the Denver staff is currently interpreting the code such that external gutters are not part of a projection beyond an exterior wall for the sake of fire separation distance.
Excellent. Thank you very much for presenting that. All right, we're going to go to the public. Is there any public that would like to speak in favor, in support of this proposal? Any public wishing to speak in support of this proposal? Any public in support? Any public wishing to speak in opposition to this proposal? I'm not working. Any public wishing to speak in opposition? No opposition? All right, seeing none, I will go back to the committee. Committee, do you have questions of the proponent? Anybody have questions? No questions? All right. There was no testimony from the public, so nothing to rebut. So I will look to the committee for a motion, and so that we can open discussion. Kate?
I'll make a motion to approve this code change as written.
Okay, perfect. All right, there's a motion for as submitted. Is there any second? Casey? Are you seconding?
Yes.
All right. All right, so we have a motion and a second for as submitted, this proposal. Is there any discussion? Anybody wishing to discuss this proposal? Well, all right. Seeing none, then we will go to the vote. All of those committee members in favor of this proposal as written, please raise your hand. One, two, three, four, five, six. That's a unanimous vote of 6-0 because we only have 6 voting members present. All right, so that proposal passes unanimously, 6-0. All right, with that, then we will go to, hopefully I have the right version of the proposal, 79B. Oh,
Shauna, I think Christian Salinas is trying to get into the meeting right now.
okay.
You might want to move to the next one and then come back to this one.
Okay, that works because I need to find the version you gave me anyway. All right, so we're going to postpone 79B for a moment and get to P13. So P13 right here. Let me do something here and get rid of this proposal so it's not in our way. All right. All right, so those, I'm just having a real great time here. There we go. All right, proposal P13, Alicia Bach, dealing with IRC section 40314 frost protection. All right, is the proponent here? Let's see. Is the proponent here for this, for Alicia or somebody else representing Alicia on this proposal? Nobody to present. Okay, so we
I
have
can
this.
speak for it.
You want to
That's my
speak
role
for
if needed.
Yeah, that would be fine. Glenn,
Sure.
thank you. Glenn is
So-
our, for those of you who don't know, Glenn Mathewson is the subject matter expert serving on this committee, well, for this committee.
Yeah, so the concerns with this one are the terminology used currently in section 403.1.4.1 is extended below the frost line, as if you would need to excavate further than the 36-inch established frost line depth. And that's generally not how that is always or really interpreted beyond even just Denver, but most places will interpret this as simply excavating to the frost line. And so that's what this is doing, is just adding some clarity that the Denver 36-inch frost line, you only have to reach that. You don't actually have to be below that.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Glenn, for presenting that for our proponent. All right, is there anybody from the public that wishes to speak in support of this proposal? Anybody wishing to speak in favor of this proposal, just raise your hand. Support. All right, anybody in opposition to this proposal? Opposition? All right, I don't see any opposition. Committee, do you have a question for Glenn? Anybody have questions on this proposal? Austin?
I think you're muted, Austin.
It doesn't show him muted, but it's, I don't. Sometimes there's two ways of muting, sometimes on your own computer and ours. Oh, it looks like he's frozen in time. Right there. All right, well, while we wait for Austin to unfreeze, anybody else wishing to testify or to anybody else with questions, excuse me. Austin, you might have to go out and come back in because you are frozen. I'm going to give him a second since he's the only one wishing to ask a question. Oh,
Sean, I just wanted to make mention, did you need to switch Robbie and Nathan back to attendees rather than panelists?
oh, I didn't switch them. I didn't know that they got switched. I'm sorry, but thank you very much.
Yep.
Oh, I don't have them switched. Oh, I just have them as being able to talk. I see. Okay.
If Austin can still hear us, he and can write in the chat his commentary.
Yeah.
Might work as well.
Yeah, Austin, I don't know if you have access to that. To the chat, if you're frozen there. But let us know and we'll. Don't see anything in the chat either. Or could call in. I don't know what. Oh, he looks like he logged out and he's going to try to log back in. He's gone. We'll give him a minute. The nice thing about this, the only reason that we're kind of going to give him a minute is because we don't have a huge agenda. This is the smallest committee with the smallest amount of proposals. So we have a little extra time. So I'm going to try to give him some time to get logged back in and be on here. But we'll just let you guys know that for those attendees, we skipped 79B, which was item C on the agenda, and we are on D. We will do C right after this one if the proponent is here. Looks like she is.
Yeah, it looks like Kristen's on, so
All right.
we can do that one.
Well, I don't see where Austin has joined us back, unless he's an attendee. I don't see him over there either. Well, he is a committee member, so that takes us down to 5 committee members, which is just meeting quorum. Should we move forward? Or I could, if we need to, we could also table this item to be heard in, at the end of the agenda, so to see if Austin rejoins us. And then go back to item number C. So there's some options, I guess. I'm not a huge proponent of tabling, but we're not tabling to another meeting. Oh, here he comes. Here he comes. We waited for you, Austin. We'll give you a chance to get logged in. There he is. Yay. All right, Austin, we waited for you on this proposal. So You still have a question on this proposal? Go ahead. Are you typing it in the chat or are you going to? Yes, okay. He's typing it in the chat. I'm getting an error that my microphone is not working. Okay, well, you can type your question in the chat. It'll only be seen by us. Okay. All right, let's give him a second to type his question. Is the frost line always 36 inches in Denver? That is Austin's question. Glenn?
I do believe that is correct. Yes. That is their listed geographical and design criteria. But if there is a Denver staff member, I believe on the committee that welcome to clarify that.
Okay, and he's just saying that if it truly is always 36, can we just call that out? Frost protection, one of the following, bearing on or below the frost line in 31. Oh, instead of referring them to the table, is that what you're saying? Instead of referring them to table 30121, just say bearing on or below the frost line of 36 inches. Is that what you're, yes, that's what he's asking. Can you just say that instead of sending them to the table, if that's the only frost line?
Yeah, I mean, I've confirmed in table 301.2 parenthetical 1 in Denver's current amendments that they do have it listed as 36. So that would be the single frost line depth. You certainly could, as far as just an answer to that. I mean, it's typical in the code that geographic and design and climatic criteria would point back to the table, but since you are amending it, you're customizing it to be local anyway. So it could be more streamlined and helpful to your readers to simply find that information right there. Again, it would be atypical of a model code, but it would be, if you're already going to have this amended, that's certainly reasonable.
Oh, sorry. I'm trying to, I didn't put this in my review like I should have. Now it's freaking out. All right, so if I were to put this in review, all right. I think he's wanting to say something like this and say cross line of, oops. Why? Well, it's going to put it on another line. So they'll shall be protected from frost by one or more of the following methods, bearing on or below the frost line of 36 inches. Is that kind of what you're wanting to do, Austin? Or something to that effect? Yes. All right. Well, so we have right now, we don't have a motion on the table for this one. P13. All right, so we had no testimony from the public. We're on questions only from the committee. Are there any other questions from the committee before I take this to the public? And I have to find my attendance thing. Here it is. All right, I don't see any hands raised. All right, I'm just going to take it to the public real quick. Is there any public rebutting rebutting this change? That's the only thing you could rebut because that's the only thing that was brought up. Is there any public wishing to rebut in support of this change? Public wishing to rebut in opposition to this change? All right. All right. Well, I'm going to bring it back to the committee and Glenn for a motion. Now that motion could be as submitted as it was originally written, It could be for as modified by what we see on the screen or something different, or you could move for disapproval. So I'm going to look for a motion. We'll get the motion and then we can discuss it. Don't make Kate do all of the motions. Somebody, committee, is there a motion for this proposal? We need somebody to make a motion.
I'll
Thank
make
you.
a motion
Okay.
to approve as modified.
Okay, as modified by what we see on the screen.
Yes.
Okay, Glenn, does that language look okay? Or is there a different language that we should be including?
I know that looks fine.
Okay, Kate, is that a second? Well, if not, I do have Austin who wrote in as a second for approval as modified. So the motion on the table is approval as modified by what we see on the screen right here. Is there any discussion? Anybody needing to discuss this? No? All right, well, we'll take a vote. It looks like we have back all 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, all 6 of you. So those in favor of as modified by what you see on the screen, please raise your hand. That's 5, 6. All right, thank you. That's 6. That's a unanimous vote. So item number P13 has been approved as modified with a vote of 6-0-0. All right, thank you all very much. Lower your hands. Okay. Sorry, I'm just writing my notes. All right, with that, I'm going to go to call to the floor. We're going to go back to item number C, which is 79B, but I need to pull up the actual correct proposal. I'm going to lower that because I need to save it. That Erica
I did
sent.
email it to you.
Yeah, I'm going to pull that up real quick. There we go. Oh man, I get way too many emails. Here we go. All right, here is the proposal. All right, this proposal, I'm going to take it out of review or review. Can I take it out of review? No markup. There we go. All right. This is a proposal out of the DGC, the Denver Green Code, to bring it into the code. The proponent, Kristen, are you available to speak? I might have to allow her to talk. There we go.
I am here. Can you-
Whoa. That's kind of, let me see if we, let me mute everybody to just try to see if Kristen can come through without an echo. All right, go ahead, Kristen.
So I'm trying on the phone. Here, hold on. Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, sounds great. Thank you. Go ahead, Kristen. Can you hear us?
Okay. I'm not sure. I'm getting an echo.
We are not.
Okay, well, I can probably listen to myself on echo. Sorry about that. So this is a proposal about materials, and it's about the VOC content of materials. And this is moved out of DGC into mandatory, like Shauna stated. And we have a number of types of materials that are listed here that would be included in this requirement. We have left the furniture, which is typically a little bit more challenging to do in the DGC, but we have included a lot of the material categories that align with the City of Fort Collins requirements, the lead requirements, and other jurisdictional requirements in other states that require this disclosure. So this is really just a VOC emissions limit requirements, as well as the testing requirements allowed by the California Department of Public Health standard, which is very typical across the US for the standard for VOC. We've also exceptions the salvage material. So if it's some type of refurbished or refinished or salvage material that's come from another location, that does not include it. So this is really just new permanently installed finished materials.
All right. Thank you. All right, we're going to go to the public. Are there any attendees in the public who wish to speak in support of this proposal? Testimony in support of this proposal? Any attendees in support? All right, are there any attendees in opposition to this proposal? Any attendees wishing to speak in opposition? No opposition. All right. Committee, questions?
If I may,
Glenn,
before we
yes.
hand this to the committee, I just want to clarify to the committee that the prior in the title, this will be identified as section R 331.1. Just for nomenclature, that was overlooked. I should have added that in there.
Oh, right here.
Yeah, this would become the only section in the new proposed section 331 that creates an area that you could further regulate materials if you chose. But yeah, this would be 331.1.
Thank you. All right, anybody else from anybody from the committee have questions that they would like to ask the proponent? Paul.
Yeah, I just wanted to check in, and I know that there was a companion one to this for the IBC, and it was 79A, I believe. And it's my understanding that that one was turned down by the IBC committee. And I believe it had something to do with the references that were struck down with regards to the GDC references. I just wonder if we can get some clarification of what their reasoning behind, not approving the IBC version of this is.
Yeah, go ahead, Kristen.
Sure. So I was on that one, and the way I think that we presented that was a little bit confusing. It was under a flooring section. So we revised this specifically after that hearing to make sure that we were capturing the correct information that we wanted to correct. So there was an issue with the California public health standard. However, that is really the testing requirements that are used within the lead rating system. So it's not just a California testing standard. So we left that in. And to my knowledge, there's really no other representative testing compliance mechanism that is equivalent. So those were kind of the main issues there, that why this was struck down.
Yeah, I can tell you that I serve as the subject matter expert for the IBC committee. And so it was voted down last week. It was a vote of 11-0 with 2 abstaining. And I can confirm those were the reasons that they turned it down. Mostly the reference to the California standard. And it was in a different section. It was in a flooring section.
Yeah, so we tried to clarify that as much as possible for this hearing.
Right, Paul, any other questions?
Nope, that was it. Thank you for clarifying.
Okay, yes, anybody else? Questions before yes, Austin.
You guys hear me now?
Yes, we can.
All right, success. Thanks for putting up with my comments in the chat earlier, but also for the California standards, if we link to an outside standard and that standard changes, what does that do to the code? Do we have to revisit at that time, or does it automatically update as the standard changes?
It depends on how you reference the standard. I guess I'm not the SME on here. Glenn, would you like to answer that question? The problem is I don't see the standard. Oh, right here.
Yeah, it's just in
California
that first
Department
paragraph. Yep, you got it.
of Health, right here. I don't see Glenn. So normally what happens is when you reference a standard in the code, I don't see that they added the standard the way, but when you reference a standard in the code, let me just see, this is not anything you guys are doing. This is reference only.
It's down at the bottom there.
Here we go, reference standard. Generally, when you reference a standard in the code, you reference either, if you reference the whole standard without a year or an addition, then it's as that standard, moves along in time. So normally, because you guys are, adopting a code today, you would reference the standard with the addition, like right now, IBC 2021, or, you would say UL standard or California Public Health Standard 1350-22 or 21 or whatever date it is that they created that, because they're going to write a new one and then it will change. And so there usually is a date associated with a standard. So that's, you guys would have to decide if you want to adopt the standard and with a moving date, and whatever, when somebody comes in with a project, it's whatever is in effect at that time. Or if you want a date specific, like we want the California Public Health Standard created on July 1st, 2017, or whatever it is. So I don't know if there's a specific date of these standards that you're putting in place, Kristen.
I think the most recent is 2017, which is version 1.2.
And the typical nomenclature for the code is not to actually put your date in your body, but in chapter 44, where we list the reference standards,
right,
that will be, if this were to be approved, that would be included in that chapter 44 list. And that is where the dates are provided.
That's where I'm putting it on the screen under reference standards. So version 1.2, I guess, is okay, unless we want to put the date. It was, what was the date? July?
It just says 2017, I think.
Oh, okay, 2017, okay. And then the same with this. Or, yeah, so all three of these would need a date specific or a version specific. Otherwise, it's going to be changing every time a project comes in the door. It'll be whatever's in effect that day.
Right. The green seal standard is just a standard certification of a product. So I don't think, I mean, that probably does get updated. But I think you'd probably want to keep in line with whatever's current. In terms of green gold, I think that would be the same thing as well. You'd probably want the most current as new products come online. They would be certified under green seal or under green guard. So they're not like a level of rigor that the CDPH standard would set.
Okay, thank you. All right, so that brings in some information. Does the committee have additional questions before I take it to the public for rebuttal? Any more questions on the whole proposal, whether it's about the standards or about these materials or the definition. I don't see any other questions come in, so I'm going to go to the public for rebuttal. I'm just going to let you know the only thing you could rebut is something about the standards or about what happened on Denver's hearing, on the IBC hearing, because those are the only two things discussed. Is there any testimony from the public about those two items? Seeing none, I'm going to bring it back to the committee. Committee, at this time, I would take a motion so that we can have discussion. Paul,
I'd like to make a motion to approve as modified.
okay. And can you clarify the modification?
The modifications to the reference standards.
Okay. All right, is there a second?
I'll second it.
Was that was Kate?
Yep.
Okay. All right, discussion. So the proposal is presented to you as modified to include just the only modification being the update to the reference standard, the versions of the reference standards. Any discussion? Any discussion at all? No? All right. Well, the motion in front of you, committee, is for proposal 79B as modified with the changes on the screen to the reference standard, which I don't have underlined. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Okay. 4. All of those opposed, please raise your hand. It's jumping around there. So I had 4 in favor of, 2 opposed, and in all those abstaining. Anybody abstaining? No, we had 4-2. All right, so it only takes 4 for a majority since we have a committee of 6, so 50% plus 1. So we'd need 4, which we got. So as modified, 79B as modified passes with a vote as modified, yeah, with a vote of 4-2. In the future, this is something that I would ask you all to be considerate of. I made the first mistake when I was doing it on another committee. If you do not test, if you're going to vote in opposition of a proposal, please let the committee, please let us know why. So we have this testimony for support, or we have testimony, and sometimes when we will get a vote in opposition, and the proponent will never have a reason why, because nobody ever spoke against the proposal. And so just if moving forward, it's good for us to be able to give the proponent some feedback of why we voted against it. So just something to think about moving forward. All right, I'm going to lower that one. All right, so moving on, thank you. We are on item E, which is proposal 19. This is Michaela also, the real 40314. So testimony, the proponent, I think that's Casey. Speaking for Michaela.
Yes, my name is Casey Vest, residential plan reviewer for City County Denver. I'm speaking on behalf of Michaela, representing the city. So this is mainly to do to deal with the eaves and how we measure the eave height for these exceptions with the accessory structure. So basically, our way we're adjusting is with a wall as underlined and crossing out the eave height of the 10 feet or less measured from grade plane to the top of the wall's top plate. Each individual accessory structure shall be structurally independent and free of support or attachment to other structures. And that's in exception 1, and then exception 2, we changed it as with a wall crossing out the eave height of 10 feet or less measured from grade plane to the top of the concrete or masonry walls shall not be required. Each individual accessory structure shall be structurally independent and free of support or attachment to the other structures. So this proposal clarifies the height measurement of freestanding accessory structures that meet the exception. This proposal also clarifies when accessory structures will be considered 1 versus 2 structures in terms of applying this exception. The clarifying language answers the questions above, like how is eave height measured? Can we consider duplex garages with a common wall to separate 2 separate structures? And it just kind of gives us that clarifying language and easier for applicants.
Sorry, I was muted. Thank you very much. All right, let's go to the public. Are there any attendees that would wish to speak in support of this proposal? Testimony in support? Testimony in support. Opposition? Anybody wishing to speak in opposition? Raise your hand. Opposition to this proposal? Seeing none, I'll come back to the committee. Committee, it looks like somebody was raising their hand, but they put
Shauna,
it
that
back
was
down.
me.
Okay.
I was just going to add a bit of the initial, because I assisted the staff, a couple of the staff members in developing this. The final sentence there of each individual accessory structure, the nature of what really drove that concern was a duplex, a detached garage built as a duplex garage to where you had a private garage on each side for each of the duplex occupants. And that folks were trying to basically get a 1,200 square foot garage to fall under this exception, calling it 2 600 square foot garages. However, they were proposing to pour it in one 1,200 square foot monolithic pour. And so the reasoning for this structurally independent and free of support is to be sure to say, look, you can have your duplex garage, that's fine, but you would have to have 2 independent monolithic slabs, not greater than 600. And so that was a little bit, just a little more clarity to the reasoning for that final sentence.
Thank you very much. All right, committee questions. Austin.
Thanks for that information, Glenn. I'm just curious from a building standpoint, why does it matter if it's a 1,200 square foot monolithic pour versus 2 600 square foot monolithic pours?
This is actually a pretty historical provision. There was a fair bit of research done in trying to come up with what that wall height meant. And this really, from what I can understand of this provision, and again, as far back as we've had this, is it's obviously frost protection is the ideal, but this is trying to sort of be a gentler and kinder code for when folks are doing a moderately sized accessory structure, where now your risk is lower due to it being an accessory structure. Your risk of failure is lower due to the limited eave height, as well as your exposure for wind and seismic loads. And so, you know, I really don't think there's a lot of science to that 600. It's just been sort of that long accepted limit where we're willing to have a less secure and sound foundation system for, up to a gentle size. That's really, from what I have researched on it, the answer.
Thank you.
Great, thank
Glenn.
you.
Any other questions? Committee? All right. We'll go to the public for a real quick chance for rebuttal on anything that Glenn has said. If there's anybody wishing to speak in rebuttal, for or against what Glenn just said. All right. Seeing none. Committee, let's take a motion so that we can have any discussion. You guys are all so very outspoken. Casey,
Make a motion to approve as is.
okay, approval as submitted. And Kate, is that a second? All right. Any discussion? The motion on the floor is for approval as submitted. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll call the vote. All those in favor of the proposal you see before you as submitted, please raise your hand. We have 5 in support. All those in, oh, let me lower your hand one moment. All right, all those in opposition, please raise your hand. Mr. Pruitt, 1. All right, and so no abstains because it's 5 to 1 to 0. All right, the proposal number 19 has been approved as submitted with a vote of 5 to 1. Again, I would just ask if there's it helps us to have on record for the next cycle, when these things get heard or when people ask questions, did you think about this or did you think about that? It's good to have on record not just the support, but the opposition as well. So please speak up. All right, I'm going to call to the floor item number 6. Item number 6 is for R311. Again, this is Amir. All right, I will go here and make sure that I don't see Amir available. Is somebody from the city representing Amir on proposal number 6? This is a City of Denver proposal, so is there somebody from staff to present?
I believe Glenn was going to present.
I can.
Okay.
Yep. So these are some changes in the 2021 IRC to this section 311.7. There was a lot of discussion there as far as to the extent that section 311 is applicable as means of egress section. And so the point of 311.7 and the change in the 2021 was to make it clear which stairways needed to comply with all of the geometric and other stairway provisions in the IRC and clarify which ones would not. And so that's what we see here are these new exceptions that would not need to comply with any of the provisions in the IRC for stairways. The concern from the proponent here and from the staff and amongst their discussions was primarily what makes Denver unique to this and why is this maybe not appropriate to Denver is that Denver is a more urban environment with denser properties and with a goal, with most likely more density coming in the future to handle some of the housing concerns. And with that density, the pathways from the properties out to the public way become a little bit more defined as opposed to a single family home with a large lot and lots of pathways you may choose. This one is going to put you on a very often a pretty particular pathway to get from that property and out from the hazards of the higher density of properties and construction around you, and be able to get you a more secure path to the public. And so that was a reason for eliminating the decks, porches, and patios that are not serving the building, or stairs that are not serving decks. So if you had stairways just in your sidewalk. And then for eliminating the exceptions for the habitable attics and crawl space, the argument is simply that by section 311, I can't remember the section, but it's vertical egress, where the code requires you to have vertical egress in accordance with 311. It makes it clear that that's not from non-habitable attics. Yep, vertical egress right there. And so it felt that it was just confusing. Eliminating exception 2 and 3 doesn't change the intent. Just simply the proponent feels it's unnecessary to have those exceptions, whereas exception 1, proposing to eliminate it, does change the intent based on what I was saying about Denver's unique density and urban environment.
Thank you very much. All right, let's go to the public. Is there any public that's wishing to speak in support of this proposal? Any public in support of this proposal? No support. Any public in opposition to this proposal? Opposition from the public? No. All right, no opposition. Committee, questions of Glenn? Kate?
Glenn, I just want to clarify, or I think ask the question for clarification. This is only stairways that have something to do with egress. Is that correct?
No, this would now apply to any stairway out, not only within the home, but any stairway in the property that even when it's not serving a deck, porch, or building. So this would address, like, you've come out your property to your deck, you come down those stairs, they would have to comply by the model code. But once you've reached grade and now you are on a pathway where there is an established constructed stair, there would be some interpretation there for staff that they would need to comply. And that is not specific to the path to the public way from your one means of egress. There's really not, the IRC does not actually specify a path to the public way in terms of path, simply that you're open to the public way.
So then taking this a little further, just so that I understand. So if, you know, yes, Denver is a much more urban environment, but not all of Denver is, and the zoning code is not, at the moment at least, looking to go the direction of every part of Denver being much more urban. So I'm just wondering if an existing residence decides to add an addition, and would they then have to bring up all of their landscaping, you know, their stairs and a landscaping, would they have to bring that up to this code?
No, so remember, the code, the residential code is only going to address new construction, newly prompted construction. So I think a good example I may share would be if someone was putting a retaining wall in their backyard and they were going to have a set of steps built with that retaining wall. It's a pretty typical landscape type of feature. Those steps would now need to comply with the code for rise, run, handrail requirements, nosing projections, everything related to stairways, but only newly constructed stairways on the property.
Okay.
Thank you, Glenn. Thank you, Kate. Any other questions? Any other questions on this proposal? Paul?
Yeah, I have a question regarding item number 2, the exception for the non-habitable attics. You pointed out to the vertical egress portion, which discusses habitable attics, but this exception appears to point to non-habitable attics. So I'm curious if that applies to, say, a pull-down set of stairs to access an attic. You pull it down, you unfold it, you get up into the attic from that. does that technically be considered a stairway that has to comply now?
So the intent of the model code was to clarify very clear, because there was a lot of discussion, heavily discussed at the hearings for the model code on that. And that was the reason for adding in a clear exception stating, no, if you build something that would appear to look as a stairway, a ladder, a fold down ladder, any type of stairway from the attic, to make it clear it would not need to comply with the provisions. The proponent is not looking to change that, but the proponent believes that because it's not calling out for that compliant vertical egress from non-habitable attics, that it would be inappropriate to have ever interpreted as such. And so that's why he believes that in a sense, the exception is simply unnecessary and it creates a little more confusion. But the intent of this would not to require fully compliant stairways from non-habitable attics or crawl spaces.
Okay.
Excellent. Thank you, Paul. Anybody else? Any other questions? Austin?
I'm just thinking, would this change anything like in historic designated houses that have either two sets of stairs, one main stair, and then like a butler's stair? If you had to do a replace in kind, would you then be subject to all the new regulations, even though it might lead to modifications of the historic character?
So currently written in the model code, that subject wouldn't be addressed, and it would require all stairways to comply. So obviously you get into different sets of rules and existing conditions when you get into historical homes. That would most likely take a very specific review from your plans analyst. Oftentimes you have like incorrect rise and run, or not incorrect, but rise and runs that do not match today's code, but due to the size of the stairway, hole in the floor, you aren't able to to increase those without decreasing headroom. That would be something that I presume the Denver staff looks at on a one-by-one basis under the provisions of where you have feasible, it's like modifications, and it's in the part about interpretation in your chapter 1 administrative provisions that allow staff to handle that. However, none of that is affected by this proposal.
Perfect, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Anybody else wishing to ask a question? All right, I'm going to go to the public for rebuttal. Is there anybody that wants to rebut anything that's just been said during the committee questions? Anybody wishing to rebut anything that's been said, whether it's in support or opposition? Seeing none, committee, I would ask you for a motion. Kate.
Actually, in this case, I'm going to make a motion to what would the word be? Not support?
Disapprove?
Disapprove. Thank you.
Mhm.
Disapprove of this code change.
Okay. Is there a second? There's several hands raised, but I don't know if you're, Robert, are you a second on this?
Yeah, I'm a second.
Okay. And so Robert is a second. Kate, can I get a reason statement for disapproval?
Sure. I think that at least the way I understand it, this takes away some discretion for landscape designers and architects to create stairs in the landscape that could be seen more as for use in a, since it's not an egress function, it's for use by the folks there that may actually create a nicer environment than a straight up and down. Like it would allow sort of landing, stairs as landings and places to stop along the way.
Gotcha. All right. Is there anybody else with some discussion on this? Casey?
Yeah, I think this, I understand the intent of where he is going, but I think this will cause one, confusion. And two, like she was saying, this, I think it's a little too strict on the side of mandating that how stairs need to be and what they need to meet in the requirements. I get where he was going with the urban feel of it, but when this can be extended to the backyards and other areas where I don't feel that we should have any part in.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Any other discussion? Okay, the motion on the floor is for disapproval. So if you are in support of disapproval, it gets a little confusing. If you raise your hand now, you want this proposal disapproved. So raise your hand if you're in support of disapproval. I see a hand raise of 5. All right, thank you. And all those in opposition to disapproval, if you are against disapproving this item, please raise your hand. And if you're abstaining from voting right now, please raise your hand. 1, okay. So item number 6, which is the stairway exception, has been disapproved with a vote of 5-0 with 1 abstention. Thank you very much. We are going to, let's see, I think, let's move forward. P35, we'll call to the floor item number P35. I really do have it here. Here we go. All right. This is proponent Glenn Mathewson. Mr. Mathewson.
Yes, so part of the scope of work in assisting Denver with their this code process and adoption was to look for other opportunities where we felt as consultants that the code, their adoption package and amendment package could be made more clear and useful to the public. And so currently you had in the Denver code, the 2019 edition based on the 18 model codes, you had a newly created Appendix U. And what this was doing was taking the 2015 International Swimming Pool and Spa Code provisions 305 for security barriers around pools and putting it back into your local IRC. The reasoning for that back in that time was in the changes from the 2012 to the 2015 IRC, the provisions for security barriers used to be in an appendix in the IRC, but with the newly developed International Swimming Pool and Spa Code, actually that was in 2012, they pulled these security barrier provisions from the IRC and placed them into a separate standalone International Swimming Pool and Spa Code. In doing that, it seemed appropriate because it's related to pool installations. However, it made those provisions a lot more inaccessible to the public. And these provisions for security barriers around pools, they sort of cross between the pool contractors and your regular contractors doing things like fencing, doing things like decks and other items. So Denver wanted to make that more accessible and put that in their appendix. However, what they had was when you went from 2015 to 2018, Denver kept one wording of the 2015. So your current 2021 code adoption would have had an appendix with provisions of the 2018 and 2015 pool and spa code. And so this proposal simply gets rid of Appendix U and goes ahead and changes the reference in the Chapter 3 section of your IRC instead of referencing over to the swimming pool and spa code, you'll see right there in general, that's been changed to now simply include all of the section 305 directly into chapter 3 here, and make it much easier for both staff and public to access these important life safety provisions. And one note is one part of the swimming pool and spa code in section 305, the last subsection speaks to a subject that would only be an IDC issue. I believe it's about means of egress. I can't go off the top of my head here. What did I say? And that is the one part that was not pulled over, since it would not be appropriate for IRC structures.
Excellent. Thank you very much. All right. Let's go to the public. Is there any public that wishes to testify in support of this proposal? Support? Any testimony in support? Opposition? Anybody wishing to testify in opposition to this proposal? No, no opposition? All right. Committee, any questions of Glenn? Any questions of Glenn? Seeing none, we will have no rebuttal. And I would ask the committee for a motion and discussion. Casey,
Motion to approve as is.
okay. Is there a second? Paul, is that a second? All right. I have a motion and a second for as submitted. Do you have any discussion? Austin? Austin, did you have something you wanted to say?
No, that was an accident. Sorry about that.
Oh, no worries. No worries. Is there any discussion on this proposal for as submitted? Seeing none, we'll call the vote. The motion on the floor is for as submitted of proposal P35. All those in favor, please raise your hand. That is a vote of 5. All those, let me lower your hand. All those in opposition? Mr. Pruitt? And then no abstains because there's only 6 members. All right. P35 has been approved with a vote of 5-1. Thank you very much, Glenn and committee. All right, that brings us to, we only have one more. I was going to take a break, but we only have one more. So we'll hear item number 13. Item number 13, also Glenn.
Yes. So this was another one of those, as working as a consultant for Denver here and with the Noresco team, Denver had identified some policies that ideally, if we can incorporate some of these policies that live alone as separate documents, if those can be incorporated right into the larger amendment package, it would be more convenient for staff and public to be able to access that information. And so I was asked to look at that, the policy for when soil analysis, professional geotechnical soil analysis is required for single family homes in the IRC and townhouses. And there was a lot of overlap. Hopefully you guys have had a chance to review this proposal prior, but I'll be happy to answer any questions, because there was some overlap between your current amendments to section 401.4 and subsections, as well as the policy, which brought in some terms. The policy has defined terms for these helical piles, deep foundations, some of these other type of foundation types. However, these definitions in the policy did not match these same terms are defined in the IBC. So I did alter these definitions slightly so that they match exactly to the IBC definitions, and then include them into the IRC, since these are terms utilized in Denver's amendments to this. And essentially the nature of this proposal, again, my goal was to not change any of the intent, simply present the information in a more accessible manner. And what you do see here is maintaining the prescriptive soil bearing capacities that the IRC provides in table R 401.4.1 to make sure that those could still be utilized for your additions, alterations, and repairs that are not utilizing a deep foundation system or helical pile system. So like I say, it's a bit of a heavy proposal because it combines a number of documents. But I would stress that the intent here was to not change the intent or application of these provisions as currently written.
Thank you, Glenn. All right. Is there any member of the public that would like to speak in support of this proposal? Testimony in support of this proposal, R401.4, proposal number 13. Testimony in support. Testimony in opposition. Anybody wishing to testify in opposition of this proposal? Seeing no opposition, we'll come back to the committee. Committee, do you have some questions for Glenn? No questions?
I would like to let the committee know that this was also sent for review by the Denver staff members that were part of the review team.
Thank you. All right, I don't see any questions. One last time, going once, going twice. All right, I will take a motion and discussion on this proposal. Casey?
Motion to approve as is.
All right, is there a second?
Yeah, I'll
Austin?
second that.
All right. And so there's a motion and a second for approval as submitted of this proposal. Is there any discussion? Any discussion? No. All right. I'm taking it that y'all just did all your homework. All right, the motion on the floor is for as submitted. We will call the vote. All those in favor, please raise your hand. That is a 5. All those opposed, please raise your hand. Oh wait, Robert, is that, sorry, I didn't lower everybody's hand, so I'm gonna, before I call opposition. All right, all those opposed, please raise your hand. Okay. Okay. Thank you. The proposal number 13 has been approved as submitted with a vote of 5-1. That concludes all of the proposals that we had on today's agenda. So at this time, we will call the meeting. We'll stay on the line for a few minutes in case anybody has any comments or any suggestions that they'd like to present to us on how we can do things differently or better. I would just make one comment one last time that I have gotten from many proponents requesting, please, if you're going to vote differently than the rest of the committee, or you're going to vote in opposition of the motion on the floor, to please give a reason so that they know, so that they can understand the thought process behind these. There's been a lot of votes today with opposition to them, but with no reason. And so we would just like to be able to give the proponents an idea of what we didn't like or what we would do differently, so that next cycle they can do it differently, or maybe we need to think about something differently. And sometimes if you voice your opposition, you actually can, you influence other people like, oh, I never thought of that. I should have thought of that. So just some things that I've heard from a lot of proponents that got to the end and didn't have a reason why somebody voted against them. All right. With that, I guess I will
Donna,
just,
I
yes,
think
go
there's
ahead.
there's an attendee with the hand up. I'm not sure.
Okay, perfect. Excellent. Thank you.
Mr. Robert Glass.
Mr. Glass, allowed to speak. Mr. Glass?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. Just wanted to, I guess, I don't know whether you call it a point of order.
Yeah.
There's a proposal under the IMC, that's IMC Chapter 15, and that actually has both an IMC as well as some IRC proposals, but it's not posted under the IRC proposal section. So I just wanted to make sure that that was not lost.
I don't think so. I think this just came up like just in the last week. I saw an email going around about that. Glenn, do you want to address that?
Yeah, well, I believe that's in IRC Chapter 15. That Chapter 15 of IRC is in the M chapters, if you will, the mechanicals.
Right.
And so that will be heard by the mechanical committee. So all plumbing and mechanical and fuel gas
Oh, I see.
in the IRC is not heard by this committee. That's going to be heard by the mechanical, plumbing, and fuel gas committee. And so that may be what you're seeing.
Okay.
Right. Thank you very much. Yes,
and
all
maybe
residential and plumbing, all residential and commercial plumbing will be heard by the mechanical plumbing committee.
Okay, that explains it. And so that's great. Thank you so much for that clarification. And we'll make sure we participate then in the mechanical groups when they start meeting.
Yeah, they don't start for quite a while. I think sometime in April.
Correct. Okay, great. Thank you very much for that.
You're welcome. Any other questions, comments before we end the meeting? All right, thank you everybody for attending. Erica, we can